right, so let's just get started right away. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off very, very early in this video and just tell you right now that it is my conclusion at the moment that more than likely Luigi Mangione did write that diary that they say was in his possession in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And some of you may think this is a horrible thing for me to say, so that's why I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off early. It is more than likely my opinion that he did write that, but I'm going to get into the details, and I'm going to show you also why I think it's possible he didn't write it. But I want to show you very, very bluntly why it is I believe that he did it as far as writing the manifesto, although manifesto, let's keep in mind, is their word, not Luigi Mangione's word, not his attorney's word. Manifesto is the prosecution's word. That is a diary, according its personal notes, according to his attorneys, both in Pennsylvania and in New York, I believe, have both called it his personal notes and his personal diary. But if they did indeed say those are words that Luigi Mangione wrote, then we have to kind of put weight on the idea that Luigi Mangione did write it. I've done some handwriting analysis. I'm not a professional, so keep in mind that my handwriting analysis is an armchair analysis. I'm going to use my own eyeballs and things that I've done from watching many, many shows on handwriting analysis to show you things that I know to look for and what I see in my own personal opinion. I'm going to show you that in detail. I'm going to show you areas in the handwriting where I say it doesn't look like the same writing. Like, for example, right off the bat, you can say, when you look at Luigi's letter log, which we're going to look at here in a second, versus what was written and shown in the scanned pages of the 82-page response or 83-page response for the prosecution, those handwriting samples do not look the same. What is on Luigi's website, for example, which we will show, compared to the others side by side, they do not look the same on first blush. However, when you start looking, the devil is in the details. This is the devil's advocate. So that's what I do. The devil is in the details. So we're going to look at individual letters. What is common? What is not common between those letters? We're going to use AI tools to pretend like it's a handwriting analysis and say what they think. And by the way, as a spoiler, if you will, or not burying the lead, AI will tell you that the letter log on Luigi's website and the samples in that 82 or 83 page document are only about 10 to 20% likely to be the same person. So AI is suggesting it's not the same person or a low probability of being the same person. However, with the caveat that if one was written under duress or an emotional stress or something like that, or rushed, that could explain the differences. And that is indeed, unfortunately, what I think is likely to be the case, in my opinion. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just sharing with you how I see things. I want to maintain one more time for all of you to hear. I can't say it enough. At the devil's advocates, I presume innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. That's one question that many people are going to ask me. Okay, Mr. Devil's Advocates, if you believe that Luigi Mangione wrote that confession letter, it's a confession letter and a diary. If you believe he wrote it, then what are we doing here? Well, I still believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. One, we don't know what the defense attorney, Karen Ignolo, is going to say in court. We don't know what Luigi's defense is going to be. I do have ideas. I have ideas and guesses of what the defense is going to use as their defense, and I'm going to share that at the end of this video. So we're going to get into the meat right now and show you why it is I think that all the reasons why I think Luigi Mangione probably wrote what the prosecution say he wrote. And again, to summarize, before we get into the handwriting analysis part, keep in mind, both Thomas Dickey, I believe, and Karen Ignolo, so Thomas Dickey in Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, his attorney there, and Karen Ignolo in New York, seem to be conceding that Luigi Mangione had some kind of notebook in his possession. I don't know that they addressed the so-called letter to the feds, the confession to the feds, which is also in the same notebook, allegedly. I don't think either one of them addressed that specifically. Now, I will say this. When you compare the letter to the feds, which we will do, to the scanned pages from the diary, that's the spiral notebook, they do look, in my opinion, one and the same. AI, also, to get ahead of you, it says it's an 85% match that it's the same person who wrote those samples. So more than likely, the letter from the Fed, confession letter to the feds, and the spiral notebook are written by the same individual. And unfortunately, more than likely, that is probably Luigi Mangione. That's my opinion to show you why. So let's get into it right now. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show some things here. This is Luigi Mangione's website, luigimangioneinfo.com. As you know, this is the official website maintained by the attorneys. There's an FAQ section. There's a section down here, how do I know if Luigi is receiving my or I'm receiving the mail I'm sending to him? If you expand that, here you have a letter log by Luigi Mangione. This is a very neat, organized, well printed, hand block letters, clean, fancy writing. We're going to compare that now to what you see in the so-called scanned images of the handwriting analysis. And so let's take a shot, for example, at that. Here you have scanned pages from Luigi's so-called personal notes, his diary, the red spiral notebook, aka the manifesto, if you were the prosecution. This is what it looks like. Now let's try to put those side by side. So right off the bat, if you look at those two things with just the naked eye, your eye will tell you these are not likely written by the same person. The right-hand side is very sloppy, very inconsistent in a lot of ways, with messy marks, all these things. It is not clean at all. On the other side, the left-hand side, the letter log written by Luigi Mangione, very, very meticulous, well-printed, careful writing. So the question becomes in the analysis. Now, one of the things I want to point you out, when I know from handwriting experts, one of the things you're going to look at is you're going to look at how letters are formed. Is there consistency? And they look specifically for letters like A and R, T's, whatever, to see where they cross, how they do loops, how they put tails on letters. These are all telltale signs. When a person gets writing in the flow, they tend to make the same kind of marks on their pages. So when we are looking at this, we're looking for things like, well, like P's. The problem, for example, if you look at where my mouse is on the right-hand side, the problem with most revolutionary, blah, 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 blah. So you look at that P there, and then you compare it over here to P's on this side. So there's a P, nice, crisp P on the left-hand side, not so crisp and nice over here on the right-hand side. Here's a P, for example, in the word example that looks quite a bit different than the P's. And so there's reason to believe that those aren't made by the same person. But here is the reason why I say if you are handwriting, and we can do this with a lot of letters. And again, you can pause this and look at it at your own. I just want to kind of get through this relatively quickly. The one that really bothers me the most is Y's. So if you look at words that end in Y, importantly, do you see this importantly? Notice that the Y is kind of a straight line and it goes down. It almost looks like the number 7. If you look at Luigi's letter log and you look for anything that ends in a Y, like the word country, there's that 7. It's just a flat line followed by a tail, flat line followed by a tail on both of these individuals. This is a indicator, in my unexpert opinion. Same thing with the word my down here. See my down here on the left-hand side, and that Y has got the 7 look, and that has a 7 look. Anywhere where he writes revolutionary, there's the 7 look. Humanity, there's a kind of a 7 look. That's kind of a common denominator, that these Y's look the same in both of these letters. There are other places that look the same as well. Again, you've got an A here, for example, an and. Looks very close to this and. If you put them side by side, look at the tail at the end of the A, coming down extended a little bit. These are the little minute things that handwriting analysis will look for. And keep in mind, if the defense were to say, that's a planted spiral notebook, it wasn't Luigi Mangione's, that's one thing. We would have handwriting experts that will come in here and will contest whether or not this is Luigi's handwriting. But again, when I look at country here with that tail on it for a Y, and I look at importantly over here with that tail for a Y, I see the same kind of writer. And in fact, what we'll see when we look at the handwriting analysis done by AI is AI will say, on first blush, essentially, it doesn't look the same. It looks like it's a 10 to 20% match. However, one difference could be made is if the person writing the second sample was rushing, was under duress, emotional, or in a hurry, then this would explain perhaps some of the sloppiness. And so what we do know, playing devil's advocates and being fair with the whole thing, is this letter log is written by Luigi Mangione while he's incarcerated and has a lot of time on his hand. Not ironically, what's the word I'm looking for? We can be basically reasonably assured that, God, what a weird day. We can be reasonably assured that Luigi Mangione has a lot of time on his hand and he's taking time carefully to print things. Here, however, this might be the indicator of someone who's in a hurry. One other thing. When we look at the chat GPT or the AI analysis of these two samples, we will see that they will specifically tell us that one indicator that this other sample could be the same as this sample on the left is that if they were having some kind of emotional duress or rush. Notice this paragraph here that I caught on the scanned image. I'm feeling foggy, so I can't write with the speed and clarity and confidence, I think is what it says. But these ideas have been flailing around for the last few days, and I had to write them down. If this indeed, again, if this indeed is Luigi's attorneys admitting it's his personal journal, his attorney in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is saying this is his personal journal, it's the red spiral notebook that they talk about. If indeed they've all conceded it's his notebook, here he's telling you, if that's indeed his, I'm feeling foggy, so I can't write with the speed and clarity and confidence, but these ideas have been rolling around in my head, blah, 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 and I had to write them down. So this is admission by Luigi in his own writings, if that's the case, if, there's a lot of ifs, that this is the reason why this is sloppy and this is not. This is when he's not rushed. This is when he does have time and for speed and clarity to write cleanly. This is what it looks like when he doesn't have speed and time and he's feeling foggy, brain fog perhaps. So these are indicators to me, again, that let's just address the elephant in the room. This letter seems to be, in my uneducated, unprofessional opinion, to be probably legitimately Luigi Mangioni's writing. So then where do we go next, folks? Where do we go next? Well, one, we don't know what the defense is going to be for Luigi Mangioni. Are they going to concede that this is his writing? And if they concede that this is his writing, how do we deal with things like the so-called confession letter? Because again, ChatGPT will tell us this sample is the same as the letter log, or not the letter log, the same one as the scanned images from the diary. To the feds. I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. There's the Y with the flat line and the line down, which is an indicator that it's written by the same person. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial, some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. The spiral notebook, comma, if present, comma, has some straggling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. So, if Luigi Mangioni wrote this letter, which seems to be the same handwriting as the other letters that we took a look at, the other scanned pages, and it's consistent, 85% accuracy according to ChatGPT, then the confession letter to the feds is written by the same person who wrote the letter, the spiral notebook. The spiral notebook has already been agreed to by Thomas Dickey and Karen Ignolo to be Luigi's. Now, the real $1 million question to all of this, the caveat to all of this, and many of you are going to get pissed off that I didn't say this at the very, very beginning, is we don't know when Karen said that notebook is his personal notes, not a manifesto. And when Thomas Dickey basically said that notebook was his personal notes, we don't know that that's the same notebook as this notebook. We can presume that it is. We will find out shortly, because if Karen Ignolo comes out with a public statement saying, I don't know where the hell that notebook came from, but that's not his writing, that's not the notebook that he had in his possession, that would be one thing. And we'll change everything we say. But at the moment, I'm going to say that Karen Ignolo is going to acknowledge this is his handwriting, this is his story, this is what's happening. So where does that leave us? Again, we are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Let me get to the crux of where I think this is going. Many of you have asked, well, what does this mean? What is the defense's strategy going to be if he's essentially admitted to it? If Luigi Mangioni has admitted to doing the crime via a letter that says, hey guys, I did it, and here's why I did it, what do we do next? Now keep in mind, already we know both Thomas Dickey in Pennsylvania and Karen Ignolo in the state of New York, in the federal case of New York, are arguing that the arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania was illegal, right? If it was illegal, all of that goes out the window. The confession letter, the spiral notebook will not be admissible in court. Where does that leave us, though, really, in practical matters? The damage has been done. The public has already seen it, right? At least a large number of us, including you right now, have seen it with your own eyes. So people have heard Luigi Mangioni wrote a confession letter. He pleaded not guilty, but will that be something that the juries can just put aside, even if it's not admitted to court? Because ultimately, that's where we're going. If If the court in Pennsylvania deems that the arrest was illegal and therefore none of that is admissible in court, the jury won't see, at least the jury that gets seated for the trial coming up, will not see that manifesto and that confession letter. But we in America will all know that he wrote it, right? Because we knew it was there. It just wasn't allowed to be seen in a court of law. This is going to get to a really, really tricky point in America on how you feel about things. If you feel like he's admitted it, but due to a technicality, they got it not put in front of a jury. Now, again, we believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. The court has to play right. The court can't illegally obtain information. So this is a whole ball of wax for people to struggle with. How will you feel? And I'm not here to tell you how to feel. How will you feel if you believe that Luigi Mangione actually did what they accused him of doing, that he confessed to doing it, but due to a technicality, because of sloppy police procedures, they illegally obtained this evidence on him? Are you okay with that being just left out of the jury's eye and the jury not realizing that Luigi Mangione essentially wrote a letter explaining why he did it and confessing to doing it? That's a whole ball of wax. Now, let me get to the thing I told you at the very beginning we'd finish with, which is what is the defensive strategy going to be? In my opinion, the tip-off is this paragraph right here. This was right after Pam Bondi made, the Attorney General of the United States made an announcement all over the news, mainstream media, everywhere, that Luigi Mangione was guilty of murder and killed an innocent man and a father of two, and basically took away his presumption of innocence. She did not say that, let's find out what happens. She said, this guy's guilty, he killed it, and he killed this guy. And if there's any place where it's obvious, this is the one. This is an open shut case. He's a murderer. He killed Brian Thompson, innocent man, father of two, and he should be put to death. Here's the response from Karen Ignolo that tips you off to what the defense's strategy is going to be. And so let me make sure we read this in full so I can get to the meat of it. By seeking to murder Luigi Mangione, the Justice Department has moved from dysfunctional to barbaric. Their decision to execute Luigi is political and goes against the recommendations of the local federal prosecutors, the law, and historical precedent. While claiming to protect against murder, the federal government moves to commit premeditated state-sponsored murder of Luigi. And this is the key sentence. By doing this, they are defending the broken, immoral, and murderous healthcare industry that continues to terrorize the American people. That's the key. We are prepared, and here's the second key. We are prepared to fight these federal charges brought up by the lawless Justice Department, as well as the New York State charges and the Pennsylvania charges and anything else that they pile on Luigi. This is a corrupt web of government dysfunction and one-upsmanship. Luigi is caught in the high-stakes game of tug-of-war between the state and federal prosecutors. Except the trophy is this young man's life. These two sentences, or these two little parts of this paragraph, are the key to what I believe is the defense's strategy. That they're going to concede Luigi Mangione did it, I think, that's my guess, but that he did it because of a broken, immoral, and murderous healthcare industry that terrorizes the American people. That's the key, I think. And they're prepared to fight against what they consider to be a lawless Justice Department, who's breaking the law, doing things illegally, doing things out of order, whatever the case may be. They're basically saying, look, he may have done it, but you are defending a murderous healthcare system. And therefore, I believe, and I realize not everybody believes the same way that I do. Maybe I'm overstating the position a little bit, according to some of the attorney friends I have on. But I believe this is setting up, in my personal opinion, an attempt to essentially put a justifiable homicide spin on this case. It would be basically saying, yes, Luigi did it, but you have to understand why he did. He was trying to save lives. The healthcare system is out of control. It's murdering people every single day, calling Brian Thompson an innocent person when he was responsible to his policies to increase profits for his shareholders, basically putting people to death in America by their policies of denying claims. All of that convoluted, very complex stuff is a way to say, maybe my guy did it, but maybe it was justified. Now, if that's the argument they're going to make, this could be, as I've said from the very beginning, a landmark case in America. This could end up being a case about whether or not, in a self-defense case, usually there's a caveat. You not only have the right to defend yourself against bodily harm and defend yourself as self-defense. You can kill someone, for example, in self-defense. If they're trying to kill you, if you shoot first and you kill them, in a lot of cases, if it was in self-defense, you can't be held accountable for killing that person in self-defense. In extension, there is often the caveat of defense of others, which states not only do you have the right to defend yourself against bodily harm, but you have the right to defend others in your presence. And that's the key part. Because again, in your presence may not be stipulated by the law. The person doesn't necessarily have to be standing right in front of you. So the way this works is, again, if you see somebody being murdered in front of you, or you think someone's being murdered in front of you, and a violent crime is somebody's getting beaten, and you realize that they're probably going to succumb to their injuries and be beaten to death, you can try to stop that. You can try to stop that person. And if in doing so, trying to stop the person from killing someone else, you kill them, there's a defense against that, which is defense of others. You have the right to defend yourself, and you have the right to defend others. Now, where this gets very convoluted is, according to Law and Order, a fictional show called The Full Carroll, which I did an hour-long review of that episode. Karen Ignolo, who is Luigi's attorney, is an advisor to Law and Order. That episode portrayed a defense of others strategy, as I call it, which is that the shooter in this fictional thing, who is clearly representing Luigi Mangione, that shooter was killing the CEO to save lives, because every single day thousands of people were dying because of the denials of claims that his policies had been put in place. Therefore, the shooter believed that he was saving lives by killing one not so innocent person. This is going to be the landmark case if they allow this to be tried that way. Now, I've said before, I don't imagine any judge is going to allow Karen Ignolo to put the healthcare system on trial in America, because again, the prosecution is going to say, I've said this a million times, Your Honor, the healthcare system's not on trial here. Luigi Mangione is on trial for killing Brian Thompson, not the healthcare system. But by Karen Ignolo tipping her hand that the healthcare system is broken, immoral, and murderous, I begin to wonder, I have long wondered, if this is not going to be yeah, our guy did it, but here's why he did it. And then it leads to the last conclusion. What is Karen's ultimate end goal? Is she going to try for justifiable homicide, a form of justifiable homicide? And how far reaching, or how much of a stretch is it that she can get that? Is she going for an acquittal, hung jury? What if it's hung jury after hung jury, and people just can't come to decide whether or not they're okay putting Luigi Mangione away for life in prison for trying to save lives? That maybe if you can get one juror out of 12 to decide that taking out one life to save thousands of lives is an understandable bargain, right? And if you can get one juror on a 12-person jury to say that, I feel like that's justified, by killing one man, perhaps you saved thousands of people, maybe even more, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. And if that's the case, will one person say, man, I'm not going to convict because, yeah, he did this, but he saved more lives than one life that got lost? So that can be an argument. Jury nullification could be the hugest thing in this case. Again, as an attorney friend of mine said, jury nullification is not just a pipe dream. It's a real thing that could happen. A jury could say, yeah, Luigi Mangione did it, but we're not going to convict him anyways, because they understand why he did it. They sympathize with why he did it, or they just simply don't have to explain themselves. In a jury nullification case, a jury makes the final decision on whether or not he's guilty or not, and they don't have to explain themselves. So a jury can say, yes, we check all the boxes. He committed this crime. We believe he committed this crime, but our verdict is not guilty, and they don't have to explain themselves. That is something we call jury nullification, and that is a very real possibility. So in my opinion, the most likely scenario, unfortunately, in this case, at the moment, as I see it, is Karen Ignolo is going to concede that her client, Luigi Mangione, did these things, but that the government overreached, illegally searched and seized the evidence to get him convicted, and maybe trusting on a jury to be able to feel that there was some kind of justification or whatever, and at minimum, take the death penalty off the case. Maybe Luigi Mangione will spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. But would it be considered a win by the defense if she can simply get a jury to not convict on putting him to death, because they understand at some level why he did it? In the best case scenario for the defense is the best case scenario for the defense, that jury nullification. Yeah, he did it, but we're not going to convict him. Or hung jury after hung jury, to the point that the taxpayers are simply saying, enough. This trial is too expensive. You can't get 12 people to convict this guy. Someone's always going to hold out. We're done. let him go, because we're just going to have to lose this one because we can't get 12 people to agree on it. Those are probably the best case scenario for that defense. Now, other possible defenses as I close. Yes. Is it possible Karen Ignolo will use some kind of mental health issue? Is it possible? Yes, but not likely in my opinion. Early on, she should have tipped her hand that her client had mental health issues if that was the case. Early on, she should have asked for mental health examiners to come in and assess Luigi Mangioni's mental state if she thought he had a mental health issue. In addition, Karen Ignolo could not request that Luigi Mangioni be granted a laptop to help in his own defense if she thought he was mentally impaired and couldn't prepare his defense. Could they claim some kind of temporary insanity? That's also, I think, going to be, in my armchair analysis, hard to prove, because they're going to say that Luigi Mangioni stalked Brian Thompson for a period of time, perhaps months, and then arrived in New York to do it. So that's not temporary insanity by most people's definition of temporary insanity, unless you can extend there was a period of months in which he was in some kind of fog and wasn't thinking clearly because during those periods of months he was on some kind of medication that altered his. If there's something like that, but I really don't feel like they were going that way. I really honestly feel like at the end of the day, I feel like the defense is going to concede Luigi Mangioni did it, but you need to understand why. And then the big thing is, minimum hope, you get death penalty taken off the table. Ultimate hope, you think that he gets acquitted, hung jury, or jury nullification. So there's my analysis. I know it's not popular. I know it's not great. I do want to end by saying I will not stop following this case. Luigi Mangioni is a huge, huge case for me. I believe that our healthcare system is broken in America, and I think that regardless of how you feel about Luigi Mangioni, it's time to start having a look at the bigger issues in America. One of the things that Luigi Mangioni allegedly said in that so-called confession letter to the feds was that our healthcare system is broken. He points that out, and that he wasn't the best person to explain how broken it is, but that people like Rosenthal do. I have a series on my long-form videos called Luigi's Bookshelf, in which we read a book by Elizabeth Rosenthal called An American Sickness. This is the book that I believe Luigi Mangioni was talking about. So and I've said it a million times, I'll say it on the end. If Luigi Mangioni wrote the confession letter to the feds, we don't know that he did, and we don't know that the defense isn't going to argue that he didn't. So that's a big if. But if he wrote it, and if he told us to read that book, I have done so. We have read the entire book, chapter by chapter. You can watch my review. You can listen to my comments on every single chapter. I tie it into Luigi Mangioni and what the bigger issue is in America. And regardless, in my opinion, regardless of how you feel about whether or not it's ever justified, that violence is ever justified, and I won't even go into the hypocrisy at this moment about a country that's founded on violence saying that violence is never the solution, even though I kind of did. I'm not going to go down that path too far. In a country where we say with lip service that violence never solves anything while solving everything with violence. Anyways, if you don't believe that there's any justification for doing that, that's fine and dandy. But let's not put away the opportunity to talk about the bigger picture, about healthcare system and how bad it is, and watch the fallout of what's happening with United Healthcare. It is absolutely crazy what's happening with United Healthcare. This is a huge, huge case and will continue to be so. Again, Luigi Mangioni has the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. We will follow this to its conclusion. Thank you for watching.